They called me just a server, until the fallen CEO took my hand in front of everyone. The first time Savannah Reed walked into my diner, the room changed, like the air itself straightened its back and tried to look expensive. Not because she wore luxury. She didn't. Not the way the rich women usually did when they came slumming for authentic pancakes and a photo op. Savannah wore a plain black blazer with a frayed cuff and a face that looked like it had forgotten how to sleep. Still, the businessmen at table 6 noticed her. The influencer couple near the window noticed her. Even my manager, Phil, who normally noticed nothing but mistakes and cleavage, noticed her. He watched her like she might be trouble. Maybe she was. I was halfway through a double shift, my feet throbbing, my smile taped on. The morning crowd had been cruel. A guy in a golf polo had snapped his fingers at me like I was a dog. Another had loudly joked that I should be grateful for tips with a face like that. I'd swallowed my anger because rent didn't care about dignity. Then Savannah sat in my section. When I approached with my coffee pot and my practice cheer, she looked up and met my eyes like I was a person. Like I mattered. It was so unexpected that my script faltered. "Hi, I managed. Coffee." "Yes," she said softly. "And can you tell me what's good here?" No one asked me that. They acted like I didn't have taste buds, like my opinions didn't exist. But she waited, really waited, until I answered. "The green chili omelet," I told her. "And the cornbread, don't let them rush you. It's better when it's slow." A corner of her mouth lifted. Not a rich person's smile, not a performative one, a real one. "I like slow," she said, and my stomach did something I didn't appreciate. Phil hovered behind me, pretending to wipe a clean counter. The businessman in booth 3 glanced over and muttered something to his friend, and they snickered. I knew that snicker. It was the sound people made when they thought you didn't belong in the same universe. Savannah didn't flinch, she didn't shrink. She just looked at me again and said, "What's your name?" "Maya." "Maya," she repeated like she was saving it for later. When I brought her food, she didn't scroll on her phone. She didn't treat me like furniture. She ate like the meal meant something, like the moment meant something. And when Phil came over, loud and fake friendly, trying to impress her, he didn't address her politely. He addressed her like a potential tip. "Everything good, ma'am?" Phil asked. "Maya treating you right?" Savannah's gaze sharpened. "She's treating me like a human being," she said, "which is more than I can say for some people." Phil's smile twitched. "We pride ourselves on service." "I can tell," Savannah replied, and the words were polite, but her tone made it clear she meant the opposite. After she finished, she left a tip so large I thought she'd made a mistake. I hurried after her, receipt trembling in my fingers. Savannah," I didn't know how I knew her name until I realized it was printed on her card. "This is too much." She paused on the sidewalk, sunlight carving shadows under her eyes. "No," she said, "it's the closest thing I can do to an apology." "An apology for what?" She studied me like she was weighing how much truth I could hold. "For a world that takes from you and calls it normal." I didn't know what to say to that. My throat burned. Behind me, Phil yelled, "Maya, get back inside." Savannah's eyes flicked to him, then back to me. "I'm going to a community cleanup at City Hall tonight," she said. "Not a gala, not a fundraiser, work, real work. You'll be there, won't you?" I almost laughed. "I'll be there because I care, not because you asked." Her mouth curved again, warmer this time. "Good," she said. "I prefer people who don't say yes just because I ask." That was the first spark. The second spark came that evening, under a sky the color of bruised peaches, when I showed up at City Hall still in my diner uniform and saw Savannah. Hair tied back, sleeves rolled up, hauling heavy trash bags like she'd been doing it her whole life. A corporate spokesperson arrived, all teeth and scripted kindness, praising community involvement while his assistant filmed. He barely glanced at the volunteers. When his eyes landed on me, they slid away like I was a stain. "We appreciate everyone," he announced, "even us service workers." Service workers, like we were a category of tools. I felt heat rise in my cheeks. I opened my mouth, ready to go off, ready to make a scene that would cost me my job. Savannah spoke first. "Don't," she said, low and dangerous. "Don't you dare say even like they're less." The spokesperson blinked. "Excuse me." Savannah stepped forward, standing beside me, not in front of me, not behind me, beside me. "You don't get to use people for content," she said. And you don't get to talk about dignity like it's charity. Dignity is a right. The spokesperson laughed awkwardly, and you are. Savannah held his gaze, unflinching. Someone who knows what it costs when powerful people pretend they're kind. Something rippled through the crowd, recognition without certainty. Like her face belonged to a headline everyone had read but tried to forget. The spokesperson's smile tightened. Well, whoever you are, this isn't the place. It's exactly the place, I snapped. Because your company is part of why the air is poison in the first place. The assistant's camera swung toward me like a weapon, trying to capture me as the angry poor girl. I saw it instantly. The narrative they'd sell. Savannah saw it too. She stepped closer to the camera and said calmly, film this. Film the part where you're confronted. Film the part where you don't get to hide behind marketing. The assistant faltered. The spokesperson's face reddened. People began murmuring, pulling out phones. Suddenly, the powerful man wasn't in control of the story. He tried to recover by turning to me with a condescending smile. Miss, maybe you should focus on your job. The disrespect hit me like a slap, like all the times I'd been told I was small, disposable, replaceable. Before I could speak, Savannah's voice cut through the noise. She is focusing on her job, Savannah said. She's doing what you refuse to do, cleaning up your mess. The crowd reacted, gasps, applause, angry shouts at the spokesperson. He backed away, forced to retreat under the weight of public eyes. Instant karma served hot. When the noise died down, Savannah turned to me. For the first time, her confidence cracked just enough to reveal something raw underneath. You didn't have to step in, I said. I wanted to, she replied, and I needed to. Why? She swallowed, because I used to be him. The admission landed like a stone in my chest. Used to be him. The way she said it made it clear she didn't mean a spokesperson. She meant power, influence, the ability to ruin someone's day with a single careless sentence. I stared at her. Who are you, Savannah? For a moment she looked like she might run. Then she exhaled, shaky. Someone you're going to hate, she whispered. A wind swept through the street, rattling protest signs leaning against the wall. The city lights flickered on. And in that strange half-dark, Savannah Reed looked less like a stranger and more like a storm about to break open my life. She stepped closer, not touching me, but close enough that I felt the warmth of her body. Maya, she said, can I take you home? I should have said no. I should have remembered the rules. Rich people don't fall, they land on other people. Beautiful women with haunted eyes don't show up in your life unless they're about to change it. But the way she looked at me wasn't hunger. It was need. Like she was holding onto a cliff edge and I was the first solid thing she'd found. So I nodded, once like an idiot. And the second I got into her car, I felt it. This wasn't a fling. This was the beginning of something that would either save me or destroy me. End of part 1. Part 2, she slept on my lumpy couch. Then I found the headlines that said she ruined thousands of lives. Savannah didn't take me to a penthouse. She didn't take me to a gated mansion. She took me to my own neighborhood and parked under a streetlight that buzzed like it was tired of trying. My place is complicated, she admitted, hands tight on the steering wheel. So is mine, I said, gesturing at the peeling paint and the neighbor's broken porch chair. She stared forward a second, then finally looked at me. Can I come up? It was absurd. Savannah Reed in my apartment, my tiny living room with a second-hand couch and a stubborn smell of fried onions no candle could defeat. But I opened the door anyway. Inside, Eli, my roommate, sat cross-legged on the floor in an oversized hoodie, sorting through pill bottles and pamphlets. Their hair had grown longer lately, softer around the face. They looked up, eyes cautious. Hey, I said, this is Savannah. Savannah gave a small smile. Hi. Eli's gaze flicked over her, reading her in a way I couldn't. You look familiar, they said slowly. Savannah's smile faltered. I get that a lot. I changed the subject too quickly. I've got tea. Later, while Savannah and I sat on the couch, knees almost touching, the air between us felt charged, like one wrong move would turn it into fire. You were brave today, she said. I snorted. I was angry. Anger can be brave, she replied. Something in her voice made me turn fully toward her. In my dim lamplight, I saw it, the exhaustion, the bruised shadow of shame. You said you used to be him, I whispered. What did you mean? Savannah's throat bobbed. She looked down at her hands. I was a CEO, she said. I ran Reed Terra Industries. My stomach dropped, because I knew that name. Everyone did. The company that promised clean innovation while communities downwind got sick. The company that sponsored charity galas while unions begged for fair pay. The company activists like me marched against. You're joking, I said. Savannah flinched like I'd struck her. You're that Savannah Reed, I breathed. She nodded once, eyes glossy. Fallen, she said quietly. Not famous, not powerful, just fallen. My pulse pounded. Do you know what your company did to people? Yes, she whispered. That's why I can't sleep. I stood up, suddenly too full of rage to sit. So what is this? I demanded. A guilt tour, a thrill, slumming it with the poor activist who makes you feel alive. Savannah rose too, but she didn't raise her voice. She didn't defend herself like I expected. She just looked at me like she deserved my hatred. I won't insult you by lying, she said. I came to the cleanup because I needed to do something real, because I'm drowning in what I was, and then I met you. That doesn't erase anything, I snapped. I know, she said, voice shaking, but it's the first thing that's made me want to become someone better. I stared at her, breathing hard. The room felt too small for my anger. From the hallway, I heard Eli moving quietly, giving us space, but not far enough that I forgot they were there. Not far enough that I forgot my real life existed outside this hurricane. Savannah's eyes searched mine. I'm not asking you to forgive me, she said. I'm asking you to let me try. My chest tightened, because I wanted to hate her. I wanted to slam the door on every wealthy person who ever treated me like disposable labor. But Savannah wasn't acting like a queen. She was acting like someone who'd been stripped down to bone. And the worst part, when she stepped closer and reached for my hand, carefully like she'd stop if I pulled away, I didn't. Her fingers were warm, steady. I'm sorry, she whispered, and something in her broke open. I should have stayed angry. Instead, I let myself feel how lonely she was. That night, she didn't try to seduce me. She didn't try to buy me. She slept on my lumpy couch like she deserved discomfort. And at 3 a.m., I found her sitting upright in the dark, staring at nothing, breathing like she was holding back sobs. Savannah, I whispered. She looked at me with eyes full of shame. I don't know how to live with myself, she said. I sat beside her. I didn't touch her yet. Then don't live as who you used to be, I said. Live as who you choose now. Her lips trembled. And if I choose you? My heart kicked. I should have stepped back. Instead, I leaned in, and when our lips met, it wasn't reckless like a movie. It was quiet, careful, like both of us were terrified of the hope growing between us. In the morning, I made coffee. Savannah washed my dishes without being asked. Eli watched from the doorway, expression unreadable. When Savannah left, she paused at the door and said almost too softly, "Dinner tonight." I hesitated. I can't afford your world. Then we'll stay in yours, she said. And when she walked away, Eli finally spoke. Maya, they said, voice tight, do you know who she is? I do, I admitted. Eli swallowed. Then be careful, they whispered, because people like her don't fall alone. I didn't understand that warning yet. But I would. End of part 2. Part 3, they humiliated me at the charity gala. Then the fallen CEO held a mic and exposed their lies. Savannah tried to keep me out of her old world. For weeks, she stayed in mine. Community meetings, late-night takeout, volunteer shifts where no one cared about your resume. I started to believe she meant it, that she was changing. Then the gala invitation came. It's not a celebration, Savannah said, holding the envelope like it burned. It's a fundraiser for air filters in South Chandler. The board will be there, the people who replaced me. My stomach turned. Why would you go? Because they'll use my fall as a warning story, she said, and still pretend they're the heroes. I want to stop them. And you want me there, I guessed. Savannah's eyes softened. I want you beside me, she said, not behind me, not hidden. So I went. The hotel ballroom glittered like a rich person's heaven, crystal lights, polished floors, women in dresses that looked like liquid money. The moment I entered, I felt it, the silent assessment. The way eyes skimmed my skin, my thrifted clutch, my posture. A woman in diamonds smiled at Savannah, then looked at me like I was a smudge. "And who is this?" she asked, voice dripping sugar. "Maya," Savannah said, "the person who reminds me what integrity looks like." The woman laughed lightly like Savannah had told a joke. "How sweet, and what do you do, Maya?" I felt the trap. If I said server, they'd pity me. If I lied, they'd smell it. "I work," I said calmly, "and I organize." Her smile cooled. "Organize what, your little protests?" A few people nearby chuckled. Before I could answer, Savannah's hand slid into mine, firm, protective. "Watch your tone," she said quietly. The diamond woman blinked. "Savannah, darling, don't be dramatic." "Don't be cruel," Savannah corrected. "It's not a good look." Whispers rippled. I realized then, these people didn't just dislike me. They disliked what I represented, someone who'd survived without their approval. During dinner, I heard it behind me. Poor Savannah, always collecting strays. Is she rebounding with a charity case? She'll get bored, they always do. I gripped my napkin so hard my fingers hurt. My throat burned, but I refused to cry in their glittering cage. Then the board chair, Catherine Winters, the same woman activists had accused of covering up emissions reports, tapped a glass and took the stage. "Tonight," Catherine announced, smiling wide, "we celebrate resilience. We've all watched Savannah Reed fall from grace." The room laughed soft, cruel laughter. Savannah stiffened beside me. I felt her shaking. "And now," Catherine continued, "we move forward with leadership that understands responsibility." Savannah stood so abruptly her chair scraped the floor. Every head turned. Catherine's smile sharpened. "Savannah," she purred, "did you want to say something?" Savannah stepped into the aisle. No jewelry, no entourage, just a woman who'd lost everything and decided shame would not be her leash. "Yes," Savannah said, voice steady. "I want to say you're using my fall to distract from your crimes." A stunned silence. Catherine laughed. "Crimes? Oh, sweetheart, you're spiraling again." Savannah lifted a hand, and a technician in the back, someone Savannah had quietly spoken to earlier, connected a tablet to the projector. A document flashed on the massive screen. Internal memos. Numbers. Charts. Proof. Gasps exploded through the room. Catherine's face drained. Savannah held the microphone like a weapon of truth. "You buried air toxicity reports," she said. "You cut corners to raise profits. You pretended philanthropy could erase harm. And you thought people like Maya wouldn't understand your world enough to expose it." My stomach dropped. "Savannah." She turned slightly, eyes burning. "Maya brought me back to the ground," she said into the mic. "And from the ground you can see the cracks in the towers." The crowd erupted, shouting chaos, phones raised. Catherine hissed, "Turn that off." But it was too late. The truth was on the screen. The room was watching. Instant karma, served on a silver platter. Security surged forward, but not toward Savannah, toward Catherine, because journalists had appeared like sharks smelling blood. Savannah stepped back to me, breath shaking. "You planned this," I whispered. "I planned accountability," she said, "because you taught me respect isn't charity, it's justice." I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt terrified. Because when we fled the ballroom, hands locked, hearts racing, I saw Eli standing near the exit. They weren't supposed to be there. Their eyes were wide, shining with something I couldn't name. And when they looked at Savannah, it wasn't recognition anymore. It was interest. End of part 3. Part 4, she asked me to marry her in private, then proposed to my roommate in public. The night after the gala, Savannah came to my apartment like a storm that couldn't find shelter. She paced my living room, running hands through her hair, breathing too fast. "I detonated my old world," she said. "Do you realize what that means?" "It means you did the right thing," I replied, though my voice shook. "It means people might finally get clean air." "It means they'll come for me," she whispered. "And if they can't destroy me, they'll destroy what I love." My heart stumbled at that word. "Love." Savannah stopped pacing. She turned to me with eyes raw and bright. "Maya," she said, "marry me." The room went silent. I stared at her. "What?" "I know it's fast," she rushed, voice cracking. But you're the only thing that feels real. I've had power, money, status, none of it meant anything. You, her voice broke. You make me want to deserve my life. I should have laughed. I should have told her she was panicking. But the way she looked at me, like she was offering her throat to the blade of my answer, made my chest ache. Savannah, I whispered, I. A knock hit the door. Eli entered, holding a stack of mail, stopping when they saw Savannah's face. What's going on? They asked. Savannah stepped back like she'd been caught stealing. Nothing, she said too quickly. Eli's gaze flicked to me. Maya. I swallowed, we're talking. Eli nodded slowly, but the air in the room changed. Something fragile strained. Later, after Savannah left, after she kissed my forehead like a promise, I found Eli sitting at the kitchen table, hands trembling around a mug. I need to tell you something, they said. My stomach tightened. Okay. Their voice shook. I've been figuring myself out, my gender, my identity. They swallowed hard. I think I'm ready to start living as Alina or something closer to her. Emotion hit me like a wave. Eli, Alina, I reached across the table. I'm proud of you. Their eyes filled with tears. There's more, they whispered. I've been in love with you. The words landed heavy. I stared, heart-pounding. Alina. I know, they said quickly. I know you're with Savannah. I'm not asking you to choose me. I just couldn't keep it inside. I didn't know what to do with that. My best friend, my home, my history, all suddenly tangled with my new love, my dangerous love. Days passed in a blur, news stories about Catherine, investigations, corporate panic. Savannah grew more exhausted, more tightly wound. She stopped sleeping. She started checking over her shoulder. Every time her phone buzzed, she flinched. Then she asked me to come to a small meeting at a downtown venue. It's important, she said, please. I arrived to find a crowd, cameras, lights. My heart dropped. Savannah, what is this? She approached in a tailored suit, eyes bright but distant. A press conference, she said quietly. My stomach turned. You said small. I needed you here, she whispered. I needed you to see. Before I could speak, Savannah walked on stage. The microphones waited like teeth. Reporters shouted questions. Savannah raised a hand. I have an announcement, she said. I stood frozen in the crowd. Savannah's gaze swept the room, then landed not on me. On Alina's. Because Alina was there too, standing near the aisle, looking stunned, wearing a simple dress and a brave expression like someone stepping into new skin. Savannah stepped down from the stage, walked straight to my roommate, and dropped to one knee. The room exploded with gasps. I couldn't breathe. Savannah lifted a ring, gold, shining under stage lights, and looked up at Alina with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Alina, Savannah said loudly, will you marry me? My world cracked open. My ears rang, my hands went numb. Alina stared down at Savannah, mouth trembling. Savannah, what? Savannah's eyes flicked, just once toward me, a flash of something desperate. Then back to Alina. The cameras zoomed in. The crowd held its breath. And I stood there, invisible, again, watching the woman who asked me to marry her turn around and offer my dream to someone else. Instant karma. No, this wasn't karma. This was betrayal. And as the room waited for Alina's answer, I realized the truth with sick clarity. Savannah Reed hadn't just broken my heart. She'd turned it into content. End of Part 4. Part 5, I walked away in tears, then found the file that proved the proposal was a trap. I left before Alina could answer. I didn't run, I didn't scream, I didn't give anyone the satisfaction of a spectacle. I walked out like my dignity was the only thing I could still hold. Outside, the city air felt colder than it should. I pressed a hand to my mouth, trying not to fall apart on the sidewalk where strangers could film me. My phone buzzed. Savannah, please don't disappear. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. Then Alina texted. Alina Meyer, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Please come home. Home? My chest squeezed, because home was the last place that felt safe now. When I finally returned hours later, Alina sat on the couch like a statue, face blotchy from crying. A ring box lay on the table between us like a bomb. I didn't say yes, Alina whispered immediately. I didn't say anything, I froze. I nodded, numb. Why did she do it? Alina swallowed. She pulled me aside before it started, they said shakily. She said someone was threatening you. My breath caught. What? She said Catherine's people were looking for leverage, that you were the target because you're you. Alina's voice cracked. She said marrying me would pull attention away from you, that it would make you boring to them. I stared. That's insane. I know, Alina whispered, but she looked terrified. Rage and heartbreak twisted together in my ribs. So she sacrificed me, I said bitterly. She humiliated me to protect me. Alina flinched. Maya, I think there's more. They stood and walked to their room. When they returned, they held a folder, thin but heavy with meaning. I found this on the printer, Alina said. She was here earlier, she printed it and forgot to take it. My hands shook as I opened it. Legal documents. A contract draft. A clause highlighted in yellow. Marriage agreement includes transfer of media rights, nonprofit control, and public narrative management. My blood ran cold, because the nonprofit named in the draft was Savannah's. It was the grassroots coalition I'd been building quietly for years, under a different name, under a different legal structure. A coalition I hadn't told Savannah about yet. Because I was just a server. I was also the registered director of a statewide watchdog network, funded by anonymous donors, backed by attorneys, and one signature away from launching the biggest class action case Chandler had ever seen. I kept it secret because if corporations knew, they'd crush it. And Savannah had somehow put it into a contract. Meaning she knew. Meaning someone told her. Meaning she might have been feeding information to the very people she claimed to fight. My stomach lurched. Alina watched me, eyes wide. Maya, what is that? I swallowed hard. It's proof, I whispered, that the proposal wasn't just panic. My phone buzzed again. Savannah calling. I stared at it, hands icy. Then I answered. What did you do? I said, voice low. Savannah exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. Maya, please, listen. No, I snapped. You listen. You asked me to marry you in private, then proposed to my roommate in public, and now I have a contract with my organization's name on it. How did you even know about that? Silence. Then Savannah whispered, broken, because Catherine knows. My chest tightened. How? Savannah's voice cracked. Because Catherine never stopped controlling my fall, and because I made a deal to buy you time. My heart pounded. What deal? Savannah sounded like she was crying now. I agreed to stage a narrative, she said. A distraction, a marriage headline, something shiny enough to make them stop digging into you until the lawsuit could file. My throat burned, so you used Alina. I was going to explain, she pleaded. I was going to tell you after. You were going to tell me after you broke me, I hissed. A shaky inhale. I didn't know another way, Savannah whispered. I'm sorry. I closed my eyes, fighting tears, fighting fury. Then I said the words that changed everything. You're not the only one with power, Savannah. You're just the only one who assumed I didn't. And I hung up. Alina stared at me. Maya, what are you going to do? I looked down at the contract again. Then I looked up, something steel settling in my spine. I'm going to serve justice, I said softly, and this time I'm not doing it quietly. End of Part 5. Part 6, they tried to bury us. Then the server walked into court and took everything back. The next morning, I went to work like nothing happened. That was the first punishment. Not for me. For them. Because people like Catherine Winters expected women like me to collapse, to quit, to disappear, to cry quietly where no one could hear. Instead, I refilled coffee for men who snapped their fingers. I smiled at influencers who didn't look at my face. I cashed out tips with hands steady enough to fool the world. Then, on my break, I walked into the back alley and made 3 calls. 1 to my legal counsel. 1 to our coalition's media liaison. 1 to the donor who'd been waiting for the signal. By noon, the lawsuit was filed. By 3 p.m., the press had it. By sunset, Catherine Winters' face was everywhere, next to the words class action, fraud, cover UP. That night, Savannah showed up outside my apartment, rain slicking her hair, eyes wild. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. She looked at me like she'd forgotten how to breathe. You're the director," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "I'm the person you thought you could protect like a pet." Pain flashed across her face. "I didn't think that." "You did," I replied calmly, "even if you didn't mean to." Savannah's shoulders sagged. "I'm sorry," she said, voice ragged. "I didn't deserve you." I studied her, really studied her. The fallen CEO, the woman who had power once and lost it. The woman who wanted redemption so badly she made cruel choices with good intentions. The woman who loved me and still hurt me. "Why did you propose to Alina?" I asked quietly. Savannah swallowed. "Because Catherine threatened to leak your identity," she confessed. "She said she'd ruin you before you could file, she said she'd make you look like a fraud, and she said she'd take Alina down too because she's vulnerable right now, transitioning, exposed, easy to smear." My stomach tightened. Savannah's voice broke. "I thought if I gave them a story, they'd stop hunting. I thought if I sacrificed myself, my reputation, my future, I could spare you." I stared at her. "You didn't sacrifice yourself," I said softly. "You sacrificed me." Savannah's eyes filled. "I know," she whispered, "and I will spend the rest of my life regretting it." Behind me, Alina appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a cardigan, eyes tired but clear. "I heard," Alina said quietly, "and for what it's worth, I'm glad I didn't say yes." Savannah flinched like she deserved it. Alina stepped closer to me, not possessive, just steady. "Maya didn't need saving," they said. "She needed respect." Savannah nodded slowly. "You're right." The next weeks became a storm of court filings, interviews, and community meetings packed so tight people stood outside just to listen. Catherine's board tried to spin the story, tried to paint me as an angry employee seeking attention. Then the court hearing came. The day the world expected the server to be out of place. I walked into that courtroom wearing a simple suit and my mother's old necklace, the only inheritance she left me. Catherine sat across the aisle, lips tight, eyes glittering with contempt. Savannah sat behind me, silent, humbled, not the heroine, just a witness. The judge entered. The room rose. And when proceedings began, Catherine's attorney smirked and said, "Your Honor, this case is driven by emotional activists who misunderstand corporate realities." I stood. "Permission to speak?" I asked. The judge nodded. I faced the courtroom and said, "I've been underestimated my entire life. Because of my job, my background, my accent, my skin, my relationship. People like Catherine Winters rely on that underestimation. They rely on the belief that workers don't read contracts, that communities don't keep records, that women like me don't have resources." I lifted a binder, evidence, memos, whistleblower testimony. "Today," I continued, voice steady, "you'll learn what happens when you gamble on someone's silence and lose." Catherine's smirk faded. Evidence rolled out like thunder. Whistleblowers testified. Medical reports stacked up. Children with asthma, elders with lung damage, families pushed into debt. And then the final blow. Savannah took the stand. She didn't defend herself. She didn't play victim. She looked directly at the court and said, "I was complicit, and I'm here to help undo the harm I helped cause." Instant karma doesn't always look like someone getting slapped. Sometimes it looks like the powerful being forced to tell the truth out loud. The judge ordered a full investigation. Assets frozen. Operations halted pending review. Catherine's face went pale as the consequences became real, not rumors, not headlines, but legal weight. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed me. "Maya," someone shouted, "what do you want to say to people who judged you?" I stared into the cameras, into the eyes of every person who ever treated me like less. And I said clearly, "Respect is free, but disrespect gets expensive." The clip went viral within hours. That night back at the apartment, Alina cooked dinner like they always did when life got heavy. Simple, warm, grounding. We ate quietly. Later, Savannah stood at the door again, hesitant. "I won't ask you to take me back," she said. "I don't deserve that, I just needed to say thank you." "For what?" I asked. "For showing me what power is supposed to be," Savannah whispered. Not control, not wealth, responsibility. I held her gaze, heart aching in complicated ways. Go do better, I said. Savannah nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I will. When she left, Alina touched my arm gently. Are you okay? I exhaled. I think, I said slowly, I'm finally proud of myself. Alina smiled, soft, real. You should be. I looked around our small apartment. The same chipped table, the same thrifted couch, the same life people had called low status. And I realized something. They were wrong. This life was powerful because it was honest. Because it was built on resilience, not reputation. And because in the end, justice didn't come from Savannah's money. It came from my refusal to stay small. They mocked me at the gala until the fallen CEO turned the spotlight on them. For 2 weeks after Savannah confessed who she really was, I tried to pretend nothing had changed. I still worked doubles. I still went to community meetings. I still slept on a mattress that dipped in the middle and woke up counting expenses in my head. But knowing who Savannah had been and what she'd lost hung between us like an unfinished sentence. She tried to fit into my world. She showed up in simple clothes, volunteered without cameras, listened more than she spoke. But no matter how hard she tried, her past kept reaching for her. The invitation arrived on thick paper with embossed letters. A charity gala, environmental justice, high-profile donors. Savannah stared at it like it was a summons. They're using my name, she said quietly, as a cautionary tale and as a shield. I wanted to tell her not to go. I wanted to keep our fragile bubble intact. But I saw the fire behind her eyes, the need to face the people who had replaced her and pretended nothing was wrong. I'll go, I said before I could talk myself out of it. With you. The ballroom felt like another planet. Crystal lights, polished floors, conversations dripping with money and entitlement. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it. The looks, the judgments, the silent question of why someone like me was there at all. Savannah squeezed my hand. Stay close, she murmured. People greeted her with rehearsed sympathy. So brave of you to show your face, one woman said, smiling thinly. Another laughed softly and added, reinvention looks good on you. Then they noticed me. And this is, a silver-haired woman asked, eyes flicking over my dress like she was pricing it. Maya, Savannah replied firmly, my partner. The word landed heavy. Partner, the woman's smile froze. Oh, she said, how charitable. I felt heat rise in my face. Around us, whispers started. I caught fragments, server, rebound, phase, each word chipped away at my composure. At dinner, I overheard someone behind me murmur, she fell so far she's dating staff now. I set my fork down, hands shaking. Savannah leaned toward me. We can leave. No, I whispered. They want me small, I won't give them that. That was when the board chair took the stage. Catherine Winters, polished, confident, untouched by consequences. She smiled at the crowd. Tonight, she said, we celebrate progress, and we acknowledge the lessons learned from past leadership failures. Her gaze flicked to Savannah. The room chuckled politely. Savannah's grip tightened on my hand. And now, Catherine continued, we move forward with transparency and responsibility. Something in Savannah snapped. She stood. The sound of her chair scraping echoed louder than it should have. Heads turned. Catherine paused mid-sentence. Savannah, she asked, feigning concern, are you all right? Savannah walked into the aisle, voice steady but sharp. No, she said, I'm not because you're lying. The room went silent. You buried reports, Savannah continued. You cut costs at the expense of lives, and you're using my downfall to distract from your crimes. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Catherine laughed nervously. This isn't appropriate. Savannah lifted her phone. The screens behind the stage flickered on. Documents appeared. Emails, numbers, proof. I felt my breath catch. She deplanned this. These are internal records, Savannah said. The ones you hoped no one would see. The murmurs grew into shouts. Phones rose. Catherine's face drained of color. Security moved, but not toward Savannah, toward the exits, toward Catherine. Savannah turned back to me, eyes shining with something fierce and fragile. You taught me something, she said loudly enough for the room to hear. That respect isn't about power, it's about accountability. In that moment, I wasn't invisible. I was just a server. I was standing beside the woman who had just detonated the lies of the powerful. As chaos erupted, Savannah pulled me close and whispered, "Let's go." We left the ballroom together, hearts racing, the sound of reckoning echoing behind us. Outside, the cool night air hit my face, and I realized my hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something else. Hope. But across the street, under the glow of a street lamp, I saw a familiar silhouette. My roommate, watching us, and the look on their face told me this story was far from over. She asked me to marry her in private, then proposed to my roommate in front of everyone. After the gala imploded, Savannah clung to me like the world might steal me if she let go. The days that followed were chaos, news alerts, angry statements, corporate denials. But inside my small apartment, everything was strangely quiet. Too quiet, like the calm before something unforgivable. Savannah stopped sleeping. She paced at night, checking her phone, staring out the window like she expected someone to be waiting in the dark. The woman who once commanded boardrooms now flinched at every sound. "They're watching," she told me one night, voice barely above a whisper. "They don't forgive humiliation." I touched her arm. "You did the right thing." She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Doing the right thing doesn't make you safe." That was the night she asked me to marry her. No ring, no speeches. Just Savannah on her knees on my threadbare rug, hands shaking, eyes desperate. "Marry me," she said. "Not for headlines, not for protection, for us." My heart slammed against my ribs. "Savannah, this is fast." "I know," she said, "but I've never been more sure of anything. You're my anchor, my conscience. Without you, I don't trust myself." I wanted to say yes. God, I wanted to, but fear crept in, fear of her world, her enemies, her shadows. "I need time," I whispered. She nodded, swallowing hard. "Take all the time you need." 2 days later, she asked me to attend a small announcement. "It's just donors," she said. "I need you there." The venue was anything but small. Cameras lined the walls, journalists filled the seats. My chest tightened. "What is this?" I asked. Savannah wouldn't meet my eyes. "Just trust me." I saw my roommate, Eli, standing near the aisle, dressed differently, more confident somehow. They smiled when they saw me, but it didn't reach their eyes. Savannah stepped onto the stage. The room quieted instantly. "I've spent months being defined by my past," she began. "Today, I want to talk about my future." My pulse roared in my ears. She stepped down from the stage, walked past me, and dropped to one knee in front of Eli. The world tilted. Gasps tore through the room. Cameras flashed. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "Elena," Savannah said, using the name my roommate had only just begun to claim, "will you marry me?" Eli stared down at her, stunned, tears forming. "Savannah, I backed away slowly, my body numb. No one noticed. I was invisible again, erased in the spectacle of a perfect story. Fallen CEO proposes to brave, transitioning partner. Redemption wrapped in a bow. I walked out. Outside, the city blurred through my tears. My phone buzzed nonstop, Savannah, then Eli, but I couldn't answer. The betrayal was too sharp, too public, too calculated. When I finally went home hours later, Eli was sitting on the couch, the ring box unopened on the table between us. "I didn't say yes," they said immediately. "I didn't know she was going to do that." I nodded slowly, my chest aching. "She asked me first." Eli's face crumpled. "Oh, Maya, I swear I would never." "I know," I said softly, "but she did." Silence swallowed us. In that moment, I realized something terrifying. Savannah hadn't just broken my heart. She'd turned love into strategy. And whatever game she was playing now, it was far bigger and far more dangerous than I ever imagined. I walked away broken, then discovered the proposal was never about love. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of my bed until sunrise, replaying Savannah's face as she knelt in front of someone else, replaying the way the room had gasped like it was witnessing something beautiful instead of something cruel. Every sound in the apartment felt too loud, every memory too sharp. By morning, my phone was a graveyard of missed calls. Savannah. Savannah again. Elena, my roommate, my friend, the person caught in the blast zone. I went to work because it was the only place where the world didn't care that my heart was in pieces. Plates needed carrying, coffee needed pouring, Pain had to wait its turn. When I came home, Elena was sitting at the kitchen table, eyes swollen, hands wrapped around a cold mug. I didn't accept, they said before I could speak. I froze, I didn't even know what was happening. I nodded slowly. Why would she do that? Elena swallowed. She talked to me earlier, she said someone was coming after you. My chest tightened. Coming after me how? She said the board, Catherine Winters especially, was digging into you, your activism, your connections. She said they were looking for leverage. I laughed bitterly, so she humiliated me to protect me. Elena looked down. That's what she claimed. Something felt off. Savannah was reckless, desperate, but not careless, and then Elena stood up and walked to their room. There's more, they said, returning with a thin folder. She printed this here and forgot it. My hands shook as I opened it. Contracts, legal language, clauses highlighted in yellow. Then I saw it. A draft marriage agreement, media rights, nonprofit narrative control, public image management. And buried inside it, a name only a handful of people knew. The coalition. My coalition. The environmental watchdog network I'd built quietly for years. The one I kept hidden until the evidence was airtight, until the lawsuit could land like an earthquake. Savannah knew, which meant someone else knew too. My breath came shallow. She wasn't just panicking, I whispered. She was negotiating. My phone rang again. Savannah. This time I answered. How did you know about the coalition? I asked, voice cold. Silence stretched on the line, then a broken inhale. Because Catherine knows, Savannah said quietly. She's known for months. Rage surged through me, and you didn't tell me. She threatened you, Savannah said desperately. She said she'd destroy you before you could file, that she'd smear Elena too, use her transition, her vulnerability. Elena flinched beside me. I made a deal, Savannah continued, voice cracking. A distraction, a headline big enough to make them stop digging until you were safe. So you sacrificed us, I said. You turned my life into a shield. I thought I was buying you time, she whispered. I thought it was the only way. Tears burned my eyes, but my voice stayed steady. You don't get to decide that for me. I know, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I closed my eyes, something hard settling in my chest. You underestimated me, I said, just like they did. I hung up. Elena stared at me, fear and admiration tangled in their gaze. Maya, what are you going to do? I looked at the contract again, at the arrogance baked into every line, at the assumption that power only lived in boardrooms and bank accounts. I'm going to finish what I started, I said quietly, and I'm going to do it out loud. That night, I made the call I'd been waiting to make. The lawsuit would be filed at dawn, and this time, no one would be able to look away. They thought I was powerless until I walked into court and took everything back. The morning the lawsuit went public, I still wore my diner uniform. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to remember exactly where they thought I belonged. I poured coffee for men who didn't know my name, smiled at customers who talked over me, and clocked out like it was any other day. But under my apron, my phone vibrated nonstop. Journalists, attorneys, community leaders, people who finally understood that the story they'd been fed was incomplete. By noon, the headline broke. Class action filed against Reed Terra Board. WHISTLEBLOWERS step forward. Catherine Winters' smile vanished from television screens. Her confidence cracked under the weight of documents, testimony, and years of buried truth. And right at the center of it all, unnamed at first, was the coalition everyone had underestimated. Mind, that afternoon Savannah showed up outside my apartment. She looked smaller somehow, not fallen, stripped, no armor left. I never meant to hurt you, she said, voice raw. I was trying to save you. I crossed my arms. You don't save someone by turning them into collateral. She nodded, tears slipping freely now. I know, I just wanted you to know I told the truth. Everything, I'm cooperating fully. I know, I said. I read your affidavit. Her breath caught. Then you know I lost everything. I studied her for a long moment. You lost power, I said gently. That's not the same thing. Behind me, Elena stood in the doorway, calm and steady in her new name, her new skin. Savannah looked at her with regret, but not entitlement. I won't ask for forgiveness, Savannah said. I just wanted to say thank you. You showed me what accountability really costs. I nodded once, go do better. And she did. 2 weeks later, the courtroom overflowed. Executives in tailored suits shifted uncomfortably as evidence stacked higher than their defenses. Whistleblowers spoke with shaking voices. Doctors testified about poisoned air. Parents cried. When it was my turn, Catherine's lawyer smirked, until I stood and introduced myself. Maya Alvarez, I said clearly, director of the Southwest Environmental Justice Coalition. The room stirred. I looked directly at Catherine. You thought I was just a server, I said, and that assumption is why you lost. Gasps rippled. I laid out the timeline, the cover-ups, the intimidation, the manipulation disguised as philanthropy. I spoke calmly, precisely, because rage wasn't necessary anymore. Truth was enough. When Savannah took the stand, she didn't posture, she didn't excuse herself. She said plainly, I enabled harm, and now I'm helping dismantle it. That honesty landed harder than any accusation. The judge ruled for full investigation, asset freezes, and restitution proceedings. Catherine's empire cracked in real time. Outside the courthouse, cameras swarmed. A reporter shouted, Maya, what's the lesson here? I looked into the lens, the same lens that once erased me. Respect isn't optional, I said, and underestimating people comes with consequences. That night, Elena and I sat on our old couch, takeout between us, silence comfortable again. You okay? They asked. I smiled, tired, proud, real. Yeah, I said, I finally am. The world hadn't changed overnight, but something had shifted. They no longer saw me as small. And I no longer needed them to. After the verdict, they tried to rewrite the story, but I refused to disappear again. Winning didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like exhaustion settling into my bones, the kind that comes after you've held your breath for years and finally let it out. The verdict didn't magically fix the neighborhoods choked by pollution or return the years people lost to illness, but it cracked the lie wide open. And once a lie is cracked, it can't pretend to be solid again. That scared people. Within days, the narrative started shifting. Headlines praised corporate reform. Commentators framed the case as a tragic misunderstanding. Some even called Catherine Winters a complex figure. I watched it all from my tiny kitchen, coffee going cold in my hands, and realized something important. Justice doesn't end when the gavel falls. That's when the rewriting begins. The diner manager suddenly started being polite. Customers recognized me from the news and spoke to me like I was human instead of background noise. One man even apologized for the way he'd treated me months earlier. I nodded, accepted it, but I didn't forget. Respect that arrives only after visibility is still conditional. Elena noticed it too. They're being careful around you, they said one night stirring pasta. Like you're fragile glass now. I'm not glass, I replied. I'm steel they didn't know was there. Invitations poured in, panels, interviews, offers to partner. Some were genuine, some reeked of image laundering. I learned quickly how to tell the difference. Power always reveals itself in the fine print. Savannah stayed away, just like she promised. But one evening, weeks later, she sent a single message. I'm starting over. No board, no cameras, just work. I hope that's okay. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. That's the only way it ever was. At the next community meeting, the room overflowed. People stood shoulder to shoulder, servers, teachers, mechanics, nurses. The ones who'd been told their whole lives that they didn't matter unless someone important noticed them. I stood at the front and felt the weight of their expectations, not as pressure, but as trust. They thought we were powerless, I said, because power doesn't look like us to them, but power is just organized courage, and we have plenty of that. Applause thundered, not polite clapping, the kind that shakes walls. Afterward, a young woman approached me. Her uniform still smelled like bleach. Her hands trembled as she spoke. They fired my dad for getting sick, she said. I thought no one would care. I met her eyes. We care, I said, and we remember. That night, as Elena and I walked home under streetlights that buzzed like tired witnesses, they slipped their hand into mine. You didn't just change things out there, they said softly. You changed things in here too. I squeezed their hand, so did you. We weren't a headline, We weren't a redemption arc. We were something quieter and stronger, a life built without asking permission. Somewhere across the city, people were still underestimating someone, laughing, dismissing, believing the world would always tilt in their favor. I knew better now, because I'd lived the truth they tried to bury. You don't have to look powerful to be dangerous to injustice. You just have to refuse to stay silent. And I never would again.